This past Wednesday at the Wednesday evening service, I shared something that I recently discovered about myself. By the way, on Wednesday evening services, we are just having the best time. After the service, we spend an hour enjoying finger foods, snacks, and getting to know each other. We're calling it the fellowship time after the service. And by the way, the reason why we're doing that is because of feedback we've received in our community forums. You know, once a year, we invite everybody who wants to come and talk to us, the leadership, and tell us how we're doing and what we could do differently. And what we hear frequently is how difficult it is to connect when we are such a large community. In our celebration services on Sunday, there are 3 of them, so sometimes we lose the thread. And we've got a physical issue in that we have 3 services to manage and a parking lot of only so many sizes. So we can't really linger after the service, right? Because we have to turn it over for the next service to come. So we've thought, well, why not try anyway to connect by saying hello to each other in services, and then also to create a space on Wednesday evenings where there is no other service coming and we can sit and be together and talk and share. So I'll be there on Wednesday after the message is given by Reverend Kim Kaiser. I'm coming for the food as well as the message, so I'll see you there on Wednesday evening for our fellowship. But back to my discovery. I discovered about myself, well, I had my DNA tested, and I discovered that I have about 7% South Asian, Indonesian blood in me, which I told myself explains why I feel so very comfortable when I'm in Indonesia. But you know, 7% doesn't make you Indonesian, right? No, I'm a fan. I'm a seeker. And I've been thinking about how many times I've been back to Bali, and I can't add it all up, but I think it's over a dozen times I've been back to Bali. And I'm going back there in January 2016 with people from Santa Rosa and San Jose, so come along with us. Every time I go back there, it gives me an opportunity to be immersed a little bit more in that culture. And a little bit more. But even though I've been there so many times and I'm so interested and I've studied so much about it, I still don't get it 100%. I really don't get it. I think the key to visiting another culture is respect. And because we go with respect, the respect has given us and me access to the culture that we wouldn't have had before. You know, when we go to the temples, I don't lead the prayer service in the temple. No, we engage one of the local priests and we follow him, and he's the expert and he tells us what to do, and we do exactly what he says with respect. And we don't go there and take over. You know, here we are, the Center for Spiritual Living. We're coming into your holy place and we're going to do a spiritual mind treatment and we're going to be all metaphysical. No, we don't do that. We don't insert ourselves and intrude. We go with humility. We go with respect. And acceptance has come through that. A mutual respect has developed. And some of the local people have told me that they can see the difference between our pilgrims and tourists, regular tourists. It's not that there's anything wrong with being a tourist, but they detect the difference. You know, a tourist might go to get an experience and also a photograph, which we also go to get. But honestly, in our heart, what we go for is to learn and to be enriched and to be taught. One of the things we've learned is that Balinese Hinduism is a culture. And you literally have to be born into it to get it. Or I guess you can marry into it, but that's the longer route. I mean, that takes perseverance and patience. And I mention all this because of our focus this month, Native American spirituality, which is similarly a culture that you literally have to be born into and raised in to get it. Or I suppose you could marry into it, but that is the longer and more challenging route, I've heard from some people. but it certainly isn't anything that you can lightly convert to or adopt in a disrespectful way. It's not like that. Besides, another thing to keep in mind, when we say Native American wisdom, it's not one thing. No, there are many hundreds of different nations, each with its own culture, each with its own way, each with its own language, each with its own everything. And that's why I enjoy the recommended book of the month, The Wisdom of the Native Americans, because what it is a selection of wisdom writings from different individuals from different nations. So each writing is like looking through a window of a different nation through one individual to get a glimpse of some of the ways of some of the original people, but certainly not all of them, because we can't summarize Native American wisdom in one-size-fits-all statement. That would be just downright disrespectful. It would be like saying, white people are Christian. Well, some are. And among those who are, the differences can be quite substantial. Even the focus of what to believe in and how to practice that, the culture and the ethics can be quite different. Even here in our own county, we have Episcopalians and Catholics and Baptists and Lutherans and Methodists and so on. And it would be an oversimplification to say these Christians believe the same way. I wouldn't know. I don't know them well enough. I would have to really get into them. Do they have certain ideas in common? Quite a few. So when we say the wisdom of Native Americans, we mean the wisdom that is expressed through the writing of each individual and the window that we have to look through into that individual's nation's way of believing. Do they have certain ideas in common? Quite a few. But we read the quotes with that in mind. We're not looking for an overly simple summary of a very complex way of believing. No, we're seekers of respectful knowledge. Like, for example, on page 36, there is a beautiful piece of writing to learn from by Chief Luther Standing Bear, an author, educator, a philosopher who contributed a lot to the preservation of the Lakota heritage in our nation. From Wakantanka, the Great Spirit, there came a great unifying life force that flowed in and through all things. The flowers of the plains, blowing winds, rocks, trees, birds, animals, and was the same force that had been breathed into the first man. Thus all things were kindred and were brought together by the same great mystery. Kinship with all creatures of the earth, sky and water, was a real and active principle. In the animal and bird world, there existed a brotherly feeling that kept the Lakota safe among them. And so close did some of the Lakotas come to their feathered and furred friends that in true brotherhood, they spoke a common language. The animals had rights, the rights of man's protection, the right to live, the right to multiply, the right to freedom, and the right to man's indebtedness. And in recognition of these rights, the Lakotas never enslaved an animal and spared all life that was not needed for food and clothing. This concept of life and its relations was humanizing and gave the Lakota an abiding love. It filled their beings with joy and the mystery of living. It gave them reverence for all life. It made a place for all things in the scheme of existence with equal importance to all. The Lakota could despise no creature, For all were of one blood, made by the same hand, and filled with the same essence of the great mystery. In spirit, the Lakota were humble and meek. Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. This was true for the Lakota. And from the earth they inherited secrets long since forgotten. Their religion was sane, natural, and human. Whew, what a vision. And I can't help but thinking about our own vision of a world that works for everyone, in which we are one global family, in which kinship for all life prospers, in which, and so on. You know, it sounds so new and refreshing to me, but really it has its origins way before we began as a faith tradition, in another people even, in many different peoples in different places. Something else that I shared on Wednesday evening, and by the way, I don't just repeat everything that I did on Wednesday evening on Sunday. It's just that this was so moving to me that I wanted to read it for myself again, because I've been educating myself by reading Native American educators to see what they have to say for people like me who are seekers. This is a gentleman, Orrin Lewis, and on his website, under the section about me, there are these moving words. He says, "My name is Orrin Lewis. I am Cherokee. I also have Muskogee blood. My father's mother was half, and I also have white ancestors. My father's father was half white, and so were some older ancestors on my mother's side, but I never knew them, and I don't know too much about them. I was raised in Oklahoma, a tribal member of the Cherokee Nation, but I do not speak my own language. That really hurts my heart. I am the broken link. Back in the 50s, a lot of people were not teaching their children to speak our language. They didn't want them to get hit at school. The schools were very aggressive about only speaking English, and my older brother had a really bad time anyway, so my parents didn't teach it to me. But I have a granddaughter now who is learning the language again. My daughter-in-law's mother is a fluent speaker, and she moved in with them to help care for Winnie. She is 6 now and speaking Cherokee pretty good. So maybe that circle has closed again. Listening to her and Marianne talking together makes me remember my own grandmother a long time ago, and it gives me hope for the future. Maybe the web pages that we are working on will help other young people to know about and want to learn about their ancestral languages before they are all gone. You see, he's working together with other people to create an accurate resource, a page about information related to the languages and traditions and ways of the different nations of Native American people, especially for young Native Americans who are looking to close that circle. And he points out to people who, like me, are learning about Native American ways, and especially points out to people who want to become part of Native American traditions. He says, if that's your motive, you're going to run into some serious obstacles. Because you can't become part of a culture by reading about it on the internet, or even reading a good book about it. In his own words, he says, no, Native American spirituality is entirely cultural. So it's not something you can convert to. He makes a comparison saying it's sort of like trying to convert to being African American and you're not. I never thought of it that way. But I think I understand his point. One really has to be raised in a culture to understand it, to get it. Or one might enter the culture, join it respectively with perseverance and patience, and that takes time, and maybe you'll get it. I can't tell you how many times people have said to me, oh, Edward, maybe because you weren't born here, you don't really fully get it. Because sometimes I think I've studied more about American culture and history than some Americans have. But don't you know, natural-born Americans, they can see that I still don't get it. And I'm not just talking about my accent. Oh, I'm learning about American beliefs. Whew. They're complicated. No logic. I'm learning about American values. Oh my. Layers of contradictory values. I'm learning about American customs. Oh, there's a lot to learn there. I still don't get Christmas in the Northern Hemisphere. It is weird. And American history, as I study it, I learn that there is greatness in it, and also unresolved tragedy. I'm a naturalized American, and it's going to take me a while to get it. And maybe one day I'll fit in, But I'm here for that. And I know it'll take time, but I'm willing. And the gentleman I just read, Oren, he warns the sincere seeker to be careful who they consult with when they're learning about entering a culture. He writes, a person who has rediscovered his Indian heritage as an adult is a seeker, not a teacher. He is not qualified to speak authoritatively about Native American religion or culture, for he wasn't raised that way and doesn't have any more knowledge about it than anyone else learning about it secondhand, including you who are reading this page. I really take that to heart. And he suggests that if you really want to enter into a culture or reconnect to a culture because you have heritage in you, that you go physically and enter into the life of a tribal society to connect, and that you go with respect. And he warns that at first it might be difficult because you are an outsider. But it will gain trust and acceptance over time if you show up with humility and patience. Acceptance may come. And I think that is what I'm going to take away from my studies so far. That to become part of any spiritual tradition, even ours, that it is important to approach with humility and patience, to be teachable. There really is no shortcut to that. I'm a seeker. I'm a seeker of knowledge of Native American wisdom traditions, and so I study, and the more I learn, the more I realize I don't know a thing. It's going to take a while to get it. It's going to take a while to get it, even as a respectful fan. So I continue to read things like this beautiful book. And there's this prayer in it by a well-known medicine man of the Oglala Lakota Nation, Black Elk, who had a mystical vision of the unity of all life that is truly beautiful. This is his vision. And while I stood there, I saw more than I can tell, and understood more than I saw. For I was seeing in a sacred manner the shapes of all things in the Spirit, and the shape of all things as they must live together like one being. And I saw that the sacred hoop of my people was one of many hoops that made one circle, wide as daylight and as starlight. And in the center grew one mighty flowering tree to shelter all the children of one mother and one father. And I saw that it was holy. Whew. I I can't help but thinking about our global vision. It says we see a world in which we live together as one global family, where unity and connection is emphasized, where kinship with all life prospers us, and where peace and harmony and justice is for all. And I think how new it sounds to me, and yet how ancient it is in the visions of many people and nations before ours. And here is the prayer he wrote. Grandfather, Great Spirit, once more behold me on earth and learn to hear my feeble voice. You lived first, and you are older than all need, older than all prayer. All things belong to you. The two-legged, the four-legged, the wings of the air, and all green things that live. You have set the powers of the four quarters of the earth to cross each other. You have made me cross the good road and the road of difficulties. And where they cross, the place is holy. Day in and day out forevermore, you are the life of things. Beautiful. Part of the intention for this year's theme, One Truth, Many Paths, is to learn about the different ways that people travel through their spiritual life, with the purpose of learning from them, to be inspired, but also to discover and notice the parallels between our way and other ways. And also for us to become clearer on what it is that our culture, our spiritual culture is. What are our beliefs? What are our values? What are our customs? So it's always good to have a review. Let's have a little review. Here are some of our beliefs, a paraphrase of how we might say them. The first is that there is one, whatever it is, one creative power greater than what we are, that we can use to express life in a more beautiful way. And the second is that we are united with each other through this creative power. It's what connects us to each other and to everything. And the third is that our thought is creative because we exist within this creative mind, we might say, within the Creator itself. That our very thought is a function of creation taking place. And to learn to use that effectively is at the heart of our teaching. And what are our values? Well, you might remember we did a survey of our community and we asked, what is important to you? And these are the values that rose to the surface: love, compassion, spiritual living, and integrity. You might say that's the heart of our spiritual community. And what is our vision? Well, here are some of the phrases that describe our vision, and they're printed on the cover of this booklet that is given to everyone who completes a giving intention this month. Some of them include: we have a vision of a world that works for everyone. We see generous and ongoing sharing of resources as important. We see kinship with all life as something that we should foster and nurture. We see a world in which we awaken to our personal responsibility and take ownership for how we co-create this world. We see a world in which our communities, wherever they are engaged in meaningful service to the world. We see a world in which there is a resurgence, more value placed on art and beauty and nature and creativity, and so on. And out of this, we have some customs that we've developed, and I've said I would share with you more about one of our customs. One of our customs is to every year select 12 nonprofit partners to align with, because their work in the world matches our vision, our values, and our beliefs, and we appreciate what work they're doing in the world. And the way we go about that is we receive nominations from you, and then we sit with all these nominations and we try to select 12 that match these values, our vision, and our beliefs. We have 6 in Sonoma County, 4 in California and 2 in international territories. And I want to briefly show you what we've selected for 2016. The first is the Living Room, which is Sonoma County's only daytime drop-in center for homeless and at risk of being homeless women and children, because we see a world in which people have a sense of belonging. Sonoma County Regional Parks, which is an amazing organization that has an education program to teach young people about nature and parks and trails, because when we teach young people to revere, respect, and be interested in nature, then we have a future. We see a world in which kinship with all life prospers. Sloan House Women's Shelter, which provides a home and a 6-month broad scope program in Santa Rosa for women. Now, if you go to their website and look at some of their online testimonials, if you can get through all of that without crying, you're a better person than I am. For example, one of them says, "Last year I became homeless, jobless, and penniless. While staying in another shelter, I was able to secure a job and begin saving some money, but there was something missing. And that's where the Sloan House and staff came in, because immediately after entering the home, my life began to change. The love and encouragement from staff and the other women there helped me gain back self-esteem and self-respect, which I had lost during those difficult times. I learned I could trust other women where I once thought I couldn't. And I found that their love and encouragement was just what I needed. They helped me feel confident and grateful again." Roustabout Theater, because we see a world in which there is renewed emphasis on beauty, nature, creativity, art, and aesthetics. And if we don't provide this and teach it to our children, then why would they value it? And so Roustabout Theater, right here in Santa Rosa, provides professional theater training for young actors and singers. Beautiful. Restorative Resources, which conducts restorative justice circles in Sonoma County, which allows children who have made certain choices to take responsibility for their action and the fallout, because we see a world in which forgiveness is the norm. And Ceres Project, community project, which empowers teens in Sonoma County as they become change makers in other people's lives by creating nourishing food for people who are facing serious health challenges, but who may be in low-income situations. Marvelous. And then others in broader California, the In Spirit program in Mission Viljoen, they do a wonderful thing. They partner with Laura's House. It's a shelter for abused women. And what they do is they provide business suits and upscale clothing for these women as they re-enter the workforce. Wonderful. And they also support the Red Cross Food Pantry, and they partner with Mission Viljoen's hospital at Christmas to help children who are in hospital at that time have a celebratory time. And in 2016, their mission is to partner with Camp Pendleton to support wives, young mothers, and children of Marines who are overseas. Beautiful. It's hosted by a Center for Spiritual Living. Guidance Outreach. We see a world in which unity and connection are emphasized, and they emphasize working with the homeless. Every Friday they have a dinner for the homeless, and they also have a Thanksgiving breakfast for the homeless, and they provide shelter for the homeless, and they say even with $10 they can make a huge difference in a homeless person's life just by giving them toiletries like a toothbrush and toothpaste. It's hosted by a Center for Spiritual Living. Beautiful. And then Canal Alliance, we see a world in which we live as one global family, and this organization invests in the success of immigrants, because when new Americans have the opportunity to thrive, everybody benefits. And then the AIDS life cycle. We see a world in which communities are meaningfully involved in service to the world. This is an annual event, a ride that supports the San Francisco AIDS Foundation and the Los Angeles LGBT Center in raising funds to address the issues that surround AIDS and HIV, because so much of the funding is gone. And so we have a team this coming year, 2016, of people from the center who are doing the ride. Our librarian, our bookstore manager, our custodian, and some of our young adults, and me too. And we're going to do the 545-mile ride. And next year we've committed to get up on stage in our Lycra to inspire you to contribute to our effort, because each one of us has to raise $3,000. And you've been warned, because once you see something, your eye cannot forget it. Did you see Amy Schumer on Saturday Night Live? When she says, it looks great, but underneath this, it's a lava lamp. I'm just saying. Villages in Partnership, I told you about this extensively last week, and then our work in Ukraine, where we see a world in which people live according to spiritual truth. This is a center that teaches classes about spirituality in a place where there's a lot of distrust for spiritual organizations, and brings it to those people who desire to have it. So that is our focus for 2016, and I give it to you so you can understand why I invite you to step into a closer relationship with your center by letting us know what you plan to support us with financially in 2016 by completing your giving intention form today, so we can plan appropriately to do all of this well. And not always a message from me. How about a message from you? Here is one, a message from you to you.
The Center for Spiritual Living, Santa Rosa, is my spiritual home. When I first went there, it was 3 years ago. That's the first time ever in my life that I knew that I could have a spiritual home, that there was a place for me. It's the first place I came to know that I am perfect and whole and complete, just as I am and just as I am not. That's so very powerful. I'm just so grateful for everyone who has come before and everyone who will come after, and each of you for making the center what it is. Wherever I am in the world, it'll always be my home. Thank you.
I've been coming to the center for more than 20 years. I think Edward was just a baby when he was on stage then. This spiritual home has been such an inspiration for me. It's provided me with education, inspiration about my career, about my relationships. It gave me the faith to leap into new decisions, to become a consultant, to try my hand at art, and now I even have drawings that are on display in Golden Gate Park. I can't begin to give enough credit to the way I have been given moral guidance and a loving place to be in community. I've made new friends. I've served in so many different capacities, and even still, I feel like I am still on the owing side of the column. So, like you, I like to put my money where my heart is, and here is my heart at the Center for Spiritual Living.
If you have a message of how the center has touched your life and you'd like to give it to your own community, make a selfie video, send it to me, and I'll turn you into a movie star.